Resigne sinima cende, emite spiritum tuum creabuntur, oremus Deus corde fidelium sancti spiritus illustratione docuvisti, da nobis in iudem spiritu recta sapere et eius amor consolatione gaudere, per Christum Dominum nostrum, sede sapientiae, nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. All right, you have a quiz. I printed the questions for you without the answers. Oh, yes, it's two sides. What are your numbers?
21 to 25.
21 to 20. All right. $24. 22 and 21. That's all you have to do.
So answer all three.
Yes. No, those are easy.
So should we staple the questions to it?
Not a bad idea.
here, can see. But I get no paper.
Oh. You must be very smart.
No, I have more paper. All right, we are on page 428. We're talking about pantheistic evolutionism. Indeed, if, in the middle of the page, if the fundamental law of our reason and of reality is the principle of contradiction or of identity, because that's the same thing, the supreme reality must be the very real identity of essence and existence, or self-subsistent existence. Thus, the 5 ways for proving God's existence are joined together in opposition of the principle of identity with the mutability and composition of the world, so that it is immediately clear that in this opposition that the world is not being from itself, but that only self-subsistent existence is being from itself. See, if you have a composition of being in essence, that means you could lose it. And whenever there's a composition, you can lose it. So that means you don't have being on your own. In order that if things of that type exist, which are composed of essence and existence, and you have contingent being, that in order for those things to exist, there must be something that has being by itself. Because you can't give what you haven't got. In other words, it has to, something has to have something by nature in order that it cause something else. That does it give being to something else, or some sort of accident to something else? It has to have it by nature. So that's you'll see that in the proofs of the existence of God in De Deo Uno. That's why it's very important to understand the principle of contradiction. All right. Thus, God is known in the mirror of sensible things through the reflection of the light of the first principles, for in their light we clearly see the contingency of the mutable and composite world, and hence its dependence on the immobile and simple being. And you'll see how St. Thomas does that in the 5 ways, what we call the Quinque Viae. That's the 5 ways to prove the existence of God. And it's all based on that. This the one on motion, nothing is moved except by something else. In other words, even movement, it has to be caused. See, so that all mounts up to ultimately a prime mover. See, it's like an elevator that goes to the top floor. All of the logical steps go right up until you get to the top floor, and that's God. All right, you'll see that. Now, some evolutionist philosophers like Hegel and a number of modernists thus became vain in their thoughts, so that they confess that they denied the first principles of reason. Hence they say that the supreme principle of reason, that is the principle of contradiction, is indeed a law of discursive reason, rationis ratiocinantis. That means a purely intramental law. There's a purely logical law that, well, yes, you have to obey logical laws in order to reason correctly, but it doesn't apply to the outside world. That's what that rationis ratiocinantis, which utilizes abstract and immobile ideas, like math. However, it is not a law of our superior reason or of the intellect, which considers the ever-flowing and living reality itself, in which contradictories are identified with each other. This is what they think. So a cow is non-cow. However, in the resolutions to the objections, we will see that this denial of the real value of the principle of contradiction is mere sophistry. Unfortunately, we're not going to do the resolutions of the objections because they're very involved, but it's something that you'll see this. I mean, all of these ideas of evolution, etc., will come up, but people will bring them up to you when you're a priest, and so you know where they are if you need to go back to it. But it's not necessary to do this now. So, but already absolute evolutionism appears to us as an incontrovertible demonstration through absurdity for the existence of a God who transcends the world, he who is the source of the supernatural order. See, so he's saying that you can reduce absolute evolutionism to the absurd, which is, as I said, a very powerful argument. It means that you fell into a pit logically. All right. And but the absurd only has meaning if you accept the first principles of reason. But you can't deny the first principles of reason without affirming them. I deny the first principle of reason. You've just affirmed it. Right? For if the truth of the principle of contradiction is granted, the necessity of the other principles of reason is thus preserved, and we thus also have a rigorous demonstration of the existence of God, the first mover, first creative cause, and supreme intelligence who has ordered all things. That's all part. You'll see that in St. Thomas. Therefore, if Hegelianism did not exist, the theologian would need to invent it as a kind of demonstration through absurdity. A shot at Hegel. It reduces Hegel to just an idiot. Hence, absolute rationalism could not better demonstrate its own irrationality. Is that it is as if one were to say, in order to reject the existence of God, the Creator, we must deny the existence of the world itself, or else hold that it is the domain of radical absurdity. And that's what Sartre said. Jean-Paul Sartre, he was an existentialist. He said, yeah, everything is absurd. It's all absurd. Yeah, that's what he said. In order to reject the supernatural order, we must destroy nature itself. In order to reject revelation and the faith owed to it, we must radically overturn the very essence of reason. All right. So he has many pages here on the answering objections to these evolutionism, which materialistic evolutionism. That's what you would encounter most. That is, we all came from gorillas. But again, it's not necessary to go through that right now. So go to page 445, which is examination of agnosticism, inasmuch as it denies the possibility of supernatural revelation from the perspective of the subject, that means man. The thesis of this chapter can be stated thus: because agnosticism denies the possibility of supernatural revelation from the perspective of the subject, it can be reduced to absurdity. After considering pantheistic evolutionism, which denies the possibility of supernatural revelation from the perspective of the object, we must examine agnosticism, which denies the possibility from the perspective of the subject. Here we're going to attack Kant. He was an agnostic. Agnostic refers, you can have a religious agnostic. Well, I don't know if God exists or not. Who knows? But this means that you cannot know anything. You cannot know the essences of things, and that all of your knowledge comes from the categories. It's Kant. So he does a real good job on Kant. All right, so exposition of empirical agnosticism and idealistic agnosticism. So agnosticism in general. Generally speaking, agnosticism is a system of thought holding that human reason can only know phenomena. Remember, I told you that about Kant, which are or can be the object of our internal or external experience. So your categories are the object, whereas your knowledge is of your own categories. See, not of the thing in itself, because you never get to the thing in itself, the essence. So whatever transcends phenomena remains unknowable. So whatever is beyond phenomena, appearances, remains unknowable. That's hence the name agnosticism. We don't know. See, that's the Greek. Gnosko, which comes over into Latin as gnosko, means to know. Oh, do you have one of those Polish L's in your name?
It's not written that way. No,
But do you have it with it? Because it's on, Bishop Fleece insisted that it should be on your certificate. That would be Pawłowski.
I think on my birth certificate it's not with an L like that. That's the Polish way of spelling the name, but it's not the spelling that my family uses.
All right, well then we'll have to change those because it should match your baptismal certificate. So it's been anglicized. Yes, all right. All right, I have to tear up those. But it doesn't sound right in Pawłowski.
Pawłowski.
Yeah, because they have a normal L. I mean, normal. They have a ordinary L.
They have that.
Yes, so. But you're sure that the original was Pawłowski, or not
Well,
sure?
My family is actually Ukrainian. For some reason, we have a Polish name, but we don't actually have Polish background. So in Ukraine, I'm sure the name was spelled in Cyrillic. Ever since our family's been in Canada, we've spelled it this way.
Yeah, well, they don't. I don't think the Ukrainians have that W. I don't think so.
No, that's right. So it
Should be Pawłowski.
should be with an L if it's a Ukrainian name.
I stopped signing them. I said, I think that's wrong. Anyway, so the certain agnostics, so it is the opposite of the ancient Gnosticism, which claimed that it knew all things. You see, that's the old Gnosticism. Certain agnostics, such as John Stuart Mill, say that only subjective phenomena are knowable, thus meaning that the existence of the external world remains in doubt. I mean, you'd have to be really crazy. So you don't even know if all of this exists or not. Okay. But, probably when they went to the bank, they were quite sure that their money existed. Others, like Herbert Spencer, admit the existence of the external world, especially on account of how bodies offer up active resistance, like hitting your head against the wall, likewise holding that this world is symbolically knowable. However, they hold that things as they are in themselves outside of the mind remain unknowable, and that human reason cannot know whether the substance of bodies or of the soul exists, nor what they are, for perhaps there is only one substance, or, nay, perhaps not even one, but instead only the evolution of phenomena according to determinate laws. So what this is a sort of a declaration of independence of the human mind. See, then you can think whatever you want, and nobody can really contradict you. And that, as you're seeing that in in practice with LGBTQ, there's no objective law. Many abortions, there's no objective law. Who are you to tell me what I can do with my body and all of this stuff? That subjectivist morality is the effect of all of this kind of thinking. The mind is subject to the outside world. Your eyes are meant to see the outside world. You can touch the outside world. And so, I mean, all of this is really a form of insanity. If somebody walked around here and said, I don't know if any of this really exists, I'd say, well, I think you should go to the booby hatch. It's just, but, John Stuart Mill. Oh. All right. So, However, if human reason cannot know sensible things as they are in themselves, in their own substance, a fortiori, does everyone know what a fortiori means? For a yet greater reason, yes. It cannot demonstrate the existence of the first cause, nor know whether this supreme cause would by its very essence transcend the world, or whether on the contrary it would be immanent with it. So we don't know if God exists, and if he does exist, well, maybe he's part of the world. Maybe he's, maybe this is God, that's God. We don't know. Agnosticism confirms its thesis through an exposition of the antinomies or contradictions which, according to it, cannot be avoided in our knowledge of the essence of bodies, that of the essence of the soul, or our knowledge of the nature of the first cause. So Kant wrote a tract on the antinomies of reason. In other words, essentially an attack upon the proofs of the existence of God. He said you cannot prove the existence of God. And that's why the First Vatican Council defined that you can prove the existence of God based on St. Paul. So as is explained in the encyclical Pascendi, modernists place the foundation of religious philosophy in that doctrine which is usually called agnosticism. According to this teaching, human reason is confined entirely within the field of phenomena, that is to say, to things that are perceptible to the senses, and in the manner in which they are perceptible. It has no right and no power to transgress these limits. Hence it is incapable of lifting itself up to God and of recognizing his existence even by means of visible things. That's in a nutshell. All right, so the foundation of agnosticism, it denies the ontological value of the first notions. Ontological means that the first notions of being, etc., essence, actually exist. See, ontos in Greek means being. Right, so those things actually exist whenever you see the word ontological, as well of their transcendent value. That means that they do denies their transcendent value. That means they can only know appearances. The essences transcend. That means they're beyond the senses and the intellect. And hence denies the first principles of reason, because if you deny those things, well, yes, then a cow could be a non-cow, or it could be a rabbit, or a buffalo, or a cat. According to the agnostic outlook, these notions and correlative principles have only a phenomenal value, that is, only in the world of appearances, not in an ontological world, that is, of being. Does everyone follow this? Any problems? That is, their only value would be knowing phenomena and their laws without, however, having an ontological value. See, so Kant was out to save science, so science is saved. You have physical laws, that all belongs to phenomena. See? That is, without use for knowing the substantial being of things existing under the phenomena. So we don't know essences. For example, the notion of substance would designate only a collection of phenomena. See, a cat is a collection of phenomena. We don't know if it's a substance or not. Likewise, the notion of causality would be only the notion of a temporarily successive character of phenomena. See, so the billiard ball hits another billiard ball, and all we know is the phenomena, that's a succession. So, but we don't know that, there's no essence of causality that we know. Kant would say we add causality from our categories. I know this is all sick, but that's what they say. And this is the dominant thinking of today. See, so you can't say that the one ball caused the other to go into the hole. It's just phenomena. We live in a world of phenomena. It's like a movie. All right. So they say that the principle of causality should be expressed as every phenomenon presupposes an antecedent one, and thus ad infinitum into the past. See, so all you see is all you're looking at is a succession of the ball hitting one, and then it goes into the hole. That's only appearance, and then we say that, well, there's a lot of phenomena that where one thing follows another, and you can go back all the way in infinitum that way. See, there's no first cause of being that way. It's just a series of phenomena, and you can go ad infinitum with a series of phenomena, which is not possible in a series of being, like transfer of being. Right? Hence, in a fortiori, the first notions of reason and their correlative principles would have no transcendent value, that is, outside of phenomena, that is, essences, namely for knowing the supreme being or transcendent first cause. See, the term transcendent is being used here not only for saying that something transcends genera and species, as do the transcendentals, but rather indicates the fact that it transcends the world and every finite being. Thus, the general philosophical conclusion reached by Ignacianism. The term transcendent means something that is outside of something else. So if the like Kantian philosophy, if the object as it is in itself transcends our knowledge, that means it's not available to us. See, now we say also God is transcendent. That is opposed to being immanent. That is, he is not a part of the created world. He transcends the created world. See, that's true, and that's why the sacred liturgy is, as I said in another course, I think it manifests the transcendence of God. In other words, that he doesn't belong to this world. So you have Latin, you have incense, and all sorts of things that indicate a transcendent God, whereas the new Mass indicates an immanent God. Whereas a God that is identified with the world, and that is evident. It's not entirely explainable, but nobody has to tell you. It's like the fragrance of a rose. Define the fragrance of a rose, but you can't define it. But nobody has to tell you that it's a very nice thing. You can think about it, but you can't define it, or define a color. You can't define it. That's so you have to understand how transcendent is being used. Sometimes it's used in a very good way. Sometimes with Kantian philosophy, it's used in a very bad way. So the consequences of agnosticism in religious philosophy. This outlook has both positive and negative consequences. Negatively speaking, there are three principal consequences. The unknowability of the existence of a God who is essentially distinct from the world, that is, a transcendent God, a God who is the principle of the entire supernatural order. 2, the unknowability of the miraculous intervention of God in the world, or in other words, the unknowability of the fact of revelation confirmed through miracles. Nay, miracles cannot be conceived, for this would mean that there would be a phenomenon without some phenomenal antecedent, a claim that stands in contradiction to the principle of causality, as it is formed by such thinkers. In other words, if you deny the principle of causality, you deny the possibility of a miracle. If everything is just phenomena, and one phenomenon is, comes after another, a miracle is a miracle because it's outside of the normal physical causes of physical causes. So if there's no physical causes, no miracles. See, so it's you can see the devil in this, because this is destructive of all the principles that uphold Catholicism, you might say, and there's no possible way that you could adhere to the faith if you hold these principles. And C, even if the fact of revelation were knowable, revelation can only be symbolic or metaphorical, because it would be expressed in accord with the notions formed by our reason. For example, the notions of nature or person, which have only a phenomenal value. So how do you talk about the three persons of the Blessed Trinity if person is only a phenomenon, only an appearance? See, or the two natures in Christ. How do you talk about that if everything's just, some sort of appearance, some sort of experience? So they have only phenomenal value and hence cannot truly express the divine reality which exists above all phenomena, if indeed it exists at all. So you're going to get from this stuff evolution of dogma, which is capital in modernism. We have to change, Leo said, we have to change the attitudes before we can change the doctrine. See, so the people have to evolve, and truth comes from experience, people's experience. See, so it changes. Anyway. Okay. That's it for today. Oh, I'm getting that. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti, amen. Sub tuum praesidium confugimus Sancta Dei genitrix nostras deprecationes et despicias et necessitatibus, sed a periculis cantis libera nos semper, Virgo gloriosa benedicta. Amen. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti, amen. Go ahead.
I think so. I didn't much care for 21. I was hoping we wouldn't get that one. I assumed we would get. I assumed we would get to choose, so I didn't spend a lot of time studying that one because I figured I'll just do all the other ones.
I didn't study too much of it. I just went to the